When spending a day out on the water, especially in salt water in the Gulf of Mexico, it's really nice to be able to rinse off. We wanted to put in a water tank and pump and have a transom shower, but we didn't know where to put it, so we decided that we would locate it underneath of one of the seats. We got our deckmate seats from pontoonstuff.com, and while this one was big enough to hold the water tank, we were going to put it underneath of another seat which was a combination of two bases. Therefore, they had to be married together. So I got them all lined up and plumbed up, and then bolted them together first before putting the template in place and marking it and cutting it with a vibratory tool. I had already test fit to make sure that the tank was going to fit, and although it was a tight squeeze, it was going to fit perfectly. I found the tank and the pump on Amazon, and this is a 7-gallon model, and the dimensions fit perfectly underneath of the seat we're going to use. It's plumbed for a variety of different configurations, so basically what you do is you plug the holes that you don't need. I put the strainer and the outlet down on the bottom right corner and the inlet on the top right, and then I just used 1/2-inch threaded male plugs and screwed into the other remaining outlets. I did a test fit and saw that I was going to have to do a little bit of surgery in order to get the tank to fit between the two deck bottoms. Once I put the template in place and cut it with the vibratory tool, it fit like a charm. The pump that came with the tank is a 3-gallon per minute pump, and since it's a 7-gallon tank, if it were wide open, we'd go through all the water in just a couple minutes. But since we're going to be using a nozzle and just showering off and washing the dog or washing off fish guts or whatever, we figured it would probably be enough for the day. First, I had to bolt together both halves of the seat base, and I ran some stainless steel bolts and washers and wing nuts through there. And then I cut a cardboard template at the same size of the bottom of the tank where it was going to fit up against the wall. I had to make sure I didn't go all the way to the bottom because there were those molded ribs that the tank was going to sit on, and I wanted to make sure that I accounted for that. Once I got the template traced out onto the sidewall of the seat base, I used my oscillating multi-tool to cut through both sides of the plastic at the same time. It's really handy to use those tools. They are very convenient for jobs just like this. Once I cut everything out, I ran the vacuum on the inside and got all the little pieces of plastic out, and then fit the water tank in. And to my surprise, it actually fit. Since this is a relatively simple installation and it's just going to be underneath of a seat on our pontoon boat, I made a gravity fill for the top of it. I screwed on a fitting and then put an elbow in there along with a cap that just is going to press to fit. It won't come out because the seat will fold down on top of it anyway. Next, I wrapped all the plugs with Teflon tape, a couple wraps, and then put them into place. I'm going to have to make a vent in the top of the cap to allow the water to have a vent on the top of it, otherwise it will collapse the tank. Finally, I installed the strainer, which goes before the pump, and then I realized once I put it in, the tank wouldn't fit, so I had to remove it again, and then reinstall it after I installed the tank. I found that the easiest way to do this was to take the top off of the strainer and remove the little mesh filter, and then there was enough clearance for the strainer body to screw onto the tank. And this is what the installation would look like had I done it correctly the first time. Once that was installed, I had to put in the filler neck, which was a threaded coupling with an elbow and that press-to-fit cap. I wasn't going to use any sealant or anything to put that in place, or cement rather. I just could push it all together because it's just gravity fed, and it's going to be held in place by the weight of the seat. But I did have to put a vent hole in the top of the cap so it wouldn't collapse the water tank as it was being used. And this is what it looks like when it's all put together and in place in the seat base. Next, I had to hook up the pump and find a place where I was going to locate it. It does pump in one direction and there are errors on there, so I had to make sure that I had that done correctly, otherwise I'd just be making bubbles. This particular setup uses 1/2 inch inner diameter water hose. It has that jacket inside of it so it doesn't collapse when it's under pressure or under vacuum. I cut the water hose to length with some tubing cutters and just test fit everything to make sure it was going to line up where I wanted it to be, and then later it was going to get secured with some stainless steel hose clamps. Next, I put some Teflon tape on the ends of the water pump. One end is going to be where the water hose connects from the tank, and then the other one is going to be where the shower hose connects. They just screw on and they have a 1/2 inch barbed fitting, and they'll get tightened up with a hose clamp as well. Once all that was done and the fittings were installed, I had to put the water pump in place and then make the final connections with that little piece of the 1/2 inch tubing and the stainless steel clamps. Once the seat is installed, everything is going to get bolted down to the deck. For testing purposes, I'm going to hook up the shower hose that came with the Oxygenics shower head that I was going to use. I'm actually going to put a different hose on there that's probably 10 to 15 feet long, so you can stand on the end of the boat and shower off. And now for the moment of truth. We're going to fill it up with 7 gallons of water and see how it works. My son pointed out that would be a lot easier to fill the tank if there was an air vent, so in the future we're going to remove one of the 1/2 inch male plugs on the top when filling it. The water pump is an on-demand type that cycles on when it's needed and off when it's not. It can also be controlled from a freshwater switch on the control panel on the helm. Doing the math, we should have about 3 minutes of continuous shower pressure, but more than likely we'll cycle it on and off, and that should be enough for 2 to 4 people and a dog to be able to take showers and rinse off the salt water. The last things that we'll have to do is install the new seats onto the pontoon boat and then run the electrical wiring up to the helm. And get out on the water. Thanks for watching.